In the quiet early morning hours of August 9, 1969, in Beverly Hills, a couple hears gunshots. While the woman is alarmed, the man tells her they should go to bed. Elsewhere in the area, a man also hears the gunshots while trying to calm his dogs down. He then reports what happened to the authorities. Later in the morning, a worker arrives at the Tate residence. She sees that something is amiss with the gate. She looks around and goes inside after seeing nobody. The worker fails to notice the blood on the gate switch. Moments later, she frantically runs out of the estate, screaming, "Murder!" When the cops arrive, they ask the frightened worker to open the gate. She shakes while handing them the keys. The cops then ask her to come with them and identify the bodies. Still shocked by what she saw, the worker quickly turns them down, saying she can't go back inside. It doesn't take long for the cops to arrest William Garretson, suspecting him of committing the crime. They also bring in a man named Rossner to identify the bodies. Rossner does his best to identify each dead body and hold himself together. When they enter the house, an investigator collects samples from the word pig written in blood on the door. Then, Rossner loses it when he finally sees Sharon Tate's body. He quickly runs outside the house to puke. News about the crime spread like wildfire the next day. William Garretson undergoes a lie detector test. The examiner points out that if William is telling the truth, he shouldn't be nervous. In response, William says he is telling the truth and clarifies that he isn't nervous but confused about why he wasn't killed that night. 2 days after the Tate incident, another killing incident happens. This time, it's in the LaBianca residence, with the word Helter Skelter written on the fridge inside the house. The following day, the authorities release William Garretson for lack of evidence. They also sternly deny that the two cases are connected despite their similarities. The investigators work on figuring out the case. One of them points out that the words written on both crime scenes come from an album by the popular band, The Beatles. A week after the killings, the police raided the Spahn Ranch to answer the repeated complaints about an auto theft ring hiding there. They capture several hippies, including a man named Charles Manson, who the other hippies call Jesus Christ.
What the fuck?
3 weeks after the killings, 9-year-old Stephen Quint discovers a pistol while playing in their backyard. His father reports and surrenders the firearm to the police. Elsewhere, Manson and his hippies get released due to insufficient evidence. 2 months after the murders, in Death Valley, California, the police encounter 2 girls seemingly fleeing for their lives. They claim that Charles Manson wants to kill them. The police inform them that Manson is in jail for attacking an earth-moving machine. The girls then share information about the Manson family moving to the Boca Ranch and Susan Atkins' involvement with the Hinman murder. Susan gets interrogated by the police and confesses to her involvement with the Hinman case. She gets arrested and brought to a women's prison. There, she meets fellow inmate Ronnie Howard. Feeling connected with Ronnie, Susan reveals she killed Sharon Tate and was involved in 11 other murders. She also tells him about Charles Manson being Jesus Christ. On the morning of November 18, 1969, Los Angeles District Attorney Vincent Bugliosi gets assigned as co-prosecutor for the Sharon Tate case. Bugliosi happily accepts the assignment and goes to work by interviewing Danny DiCarlo. While they talk, Danny asks Vincent if Charles Manson has any way of knowing that he spoke with them. Vincent tells him that Charles is in jail and that he's got nothing to worry about. Danny then admits that Charles scares the living daylights out of him. After getting as much information as he can from Danny, Vincent asks that he accompany him to Spahn Ranch. Danny declines initially, reasoning that the rest of the Manson family is still there. Still, Vincent forces him to by bringing up the charges against him. When they arrive at the ranch, one of Manson's women greets them. Danny shows her he's handcuffed, implying he's being forced to be there. However, he actually requested that Vincent put on the cuffs before visiting the ranch. While they tour the ranch, Danny states that Charles had a .22 caliber bunt-line revolver that matched what was used during the killings. Not long after, Vincent asks Danny if Charles has anything to do with the Tate killings. Realizing that the Manson girls are watching over them, Danny tells Vincent he doesn't feel like talking about that topic. In the women's prison, Susan confesses to Ronnie about the murders. Scared of what she heard, Ronnie tries to tell the guard about it, but they don't take her seriously. Fearing her life might be in danger, she calls the homicide division to inform them about Susan's confession. A few days later, Vincent is frustrated with how their case against Manson is going. At that point, the only option they have is to strike a deal with Susan. Vincent is against giving her immunity. especially after what Ronnie told them. He asks Aaron to give him some time, but Aaron points out that what they need the most at that time is a motive. 3 months after the killings, Vincent and a search party go to the Manson family hideout at the Boca Ranch in Death Valley. Apart from a few magazines that imply Charles Manson idolized Hitler, they find nothing but trash in that place. Vincent talks to Danny again, saying that he believes Charles has enough domination over them that he can send them to do whatever he wants. Danny says it's not only the girls but also the other men in his family. Danny adds that Charles wanted to kill people to start a racial war. Sometime later, Leslie Van Houten gets interrogated by the police. The investigator tells Leslie about Susan's confessions, which surprises her. With the information Leslie leaked, the police managed to issue warrants for the arrest of Tex Watson, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Linda Kasabian. The police also discover that Patricia and Tex's fingerprints match those found at the Tate residence. Several days later, the grand jury proceeding for the Tate and Lobby-Onka killings is held. Susan Atkins shares all the details about the murders during the proceeding. Her stories were so brutal that one of the jurors had to excuse herself because she couldn't handle it. 4 months after the murders, the world learns about Susan Atkins' story. An inmate tells Charles Manson about Susan's story's exposure to the world. He asks him what he thinks about it. In response, Charles just stares at the man with a blank expression on his face. Not long after that, Charles Manson, Leslie, Susan, Patricia, Tex, and Linda face their charges. Then, during one of the hearings, Vincent's watch strangely stops working while Charles Manson smiles and looks at him with crazy eyes. 4 months and a week after the killings, a group of journalists from Lay's KABC TV attempts to retrace the events of the crime based on the story reported in the newspaper. They end up finding a stash of discarded bloody clothes from the murder. Meanwhile, Stephen's father calls the cops about the revolver that his son found. Unfortunately, the police hang up on him, saying they don't have time to check every gun that citizens find. Frustrated, he tells the story to the press instead. Vincent sends the gun to ballistics testing. The results let him link the weapon to the one used to kill one of the victims in the Tate murders. Believing that no lawyer could adequately represent him, Charles Manson chose to represent himself during the trials. Meanwhile, Vincent decides to bluff and trick Manson into requesting more time for the case. That way, he can put up a much stronger case against him. It works. Despite his efforts and hard work, Vincent still struggles to find the motive they are looking for. However, things start to turn for the better when he interviews a Manson family member, Paul Watkins. Paul tells him about Manson's views on life. He also reveals that Manson believes the Beatles are sending messages to him about sparking a race war known as Helter Skelter. After the interview, Vincent finally has a motive for Manson's case: personal power. While Vincent draws up notes, the phone rings, and Aaron answers it. He then informs Vincent that Susan Atkins announced she denies everything she said during the grand jury and won't testify in the trial under any circumstances. Prepared for that outcome, Vincent and Aaron smile. They then decide to wait 30 seconds before calling Linda Kasabian and offering her a deal. 6.5 months after the murders, Linda Kasabian agrees to testify against all defendants. In return, she gets immunity from prosecution after giving her testimony. Meanwhile, Judge Keene is convinced that Manson is incapable of representing himself properly in court. Later, Manson files an affidavit of prejudice against Keene. In response, Keene accepts Manson's challenge and disqualifies himself. The case is then passed to Judge Older. Manson also gets a lawyer, Everett Scoville, to represent him. During the trial, Linda Kasabian successfully gives her testimony regarding the Tate and Lobby-Onka murders. Despite constant interruptions and objections from the defense attorneys, especially Scoville, it seems he's known as a lawyer who likes to use such antics in court to delay the progress of his cases. The trial gets more chaotic as time passes, with Manson and his side causing plenty of disturbance. Despite all that, Linda delivers her end of the bargain. She tells what truly happened during the night of both murders. It turns out that Manson ordered the killings in an attempt to expedite the start of Helter Skelter. During the Tate mission, it's only Linda, Susan, Tex, and Patricia that participate. While they manage to execute their plans, Charles Manson was unsatisfied with how they handled the killings. He believes it was too messy. As a result, Charles goes with the group on the night of the Lobby-Onka incident. He plans to show them how it's done, and everything goes according to his plans. When Linda finishes giving her testimony, A somewhat disturbed Manson tells a court guard that he'll have Older and Bugliosi killed. In response to Manson's threats, Bugliosi gets some security upgrades in his house for protection. During one of the hearings, Charles Manson shows the newspaper headline about the president declaring he's guilty to the jury. It's an attempt to compromise the jury and establish grounds for a mistrial. To deal with this, Judge Older questions each juror separately and under oath. By the end of the day, they conclude that all the jurors aren't influenced by the headline and will only consider the evidence presented in court. At one point, with things starting to stack against him, Manson attempts to attack Older. Fortunately, the guards react quickly and prevent any harm from befalling the judge. Charles Manson later demands the court allow him to give a testimony, so Older lets him. However, much of what he said works to his disadvantage. Manson and his girls then continue to cause disruptions throughout the case. Tired of their antics, Older orders the defendants out of the courtroom for the remainder of the proceedings. In the end, Vincent Bugliosi gives a rousing and heartfelt speech in front of the jury, honoring the victims while he's at it. He manages to convince the jury about Manson's guilt. They judge the defendants guilty and decide to give them the death penalty as punishment for their crimes. Before going their separate ways, Charles Manson talks to Vincent Bugliosi. He tells him he doesn't harbor any hard feelings toward the lawyer. Manson proudly says he almost pulled his plan of triggering Helter Skelter. Vincent replies that he wasn't even close and that now he'll become a nobody. The film ends after Vincent reveals that by 1972, the death penalty was removed from California. This allowed Manson and the rest of the defendants to qualify for parole in the future.
Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like. It really helps the channel.